You know that feeling, right? You're in a restaurant that's just a little too loud, your smile is starting to feel glued on, and your brain is just screaming, am I being interesting enough? Is this working? Oh God, can they tell my hands are shaking? We have all been there. Putting on a whole performance when all we really want is, well, a real connection. But what if we've been coming at this from the wrong angle entirely? Just let that question sit there for a second. Because honestly, it might be the key to unlocking, well, everything. I promise you, by the time we're done here, the way you think about that first meeting is gonna completely change. You're listening to Stereo Butterflies. We talk about love, lust, and loneliness like no one's listening. And just so you know, this explainer was crafted with the help of AI technology to make sure we get right to the heart of what matters. So let's dive into what I call the first date illusion. You know, the modern first date has turned into this insane pressure cooker. It's this big show we feel like we have to put on. And the price we pay for that performance is this very unique, very modern kind of anxiety. I mean, I'm sure these feel familiar, right? That horrible sinking feeling when an awkward silence hits, the mental gymnastics of figuring out who's gonna pay, that exhausting pressure to be on, witty and exciting and charming. All while this little voice in the back of your head is just asking, is there even a real spark here? These fears, they're totally universal, but they're all symptoms of chasing the wrong thing. And that brings us to the single most important shift you can possibly make. It's about moving away from trying to create a spectacle and instead trying to create a genuine connection. It sounds so simple, but the difference it makes is huge. Just look at these two ways of thinking. On one side, you've got the spectacle. It's all about performance. It's high pressure, high stakes, and frankly, it's a total distraction from who you actually are. But then you look at the other side, the connection. It's about being present. It's the freedom to just be you. And that makes the date an expression of you, not some performance for them. This really says it all. When you take the focus off the money, off the fancy dinner, off the price tag, it has to go somewhere. And it lands on the only other thing in the room, the actual connection. Suddenly, it's just about two people. And that's where the real magic happens. Remember this. Thoughtfulness is always going to be more impressive than how much you spend. Okay, so how do we actually do this in the real world? Let's get into the practical stuff. Think of this next part as your own personal playbook for being authentic. It's about designing a date that lets your real personality shine. The real key here is to match the date to your natural vibe. Don't drag yourself to a loud karaoke bar if you feel most at home in the quiet of a museum. The goal isn't to pick the coolest or most impressive date. It's to pick the place where you feel the most like yourself. That's it. And we have to talk about these underrated gems. A flea market, a local comedy club. These are so often more memorable than some stuffy, expensive dinner. Why? Because they're low pressure and they're interactive. I mean, think about a bookstore scavenger hunt. It's brilliant, it's fun, it's playful, and it tells you so much more about a person than an hour of small talk over drinks ever could. All right, here's a very simple but incredibly powerful rule to live by. 60 to 90 minutes. That's the sweet spot for a first date. It's long enough to actually feel out a vibe, but it's short enough that you have a built-in, graceful exit if there isn't one. If it goes well, it leaves them wanting more. And if it doesn't, well, it saves you both a ton of time. Okay, let's talk about those tricky in-between moments. The awkward dance of the first hug, figuring out the goodbye, and of course, that one big question that always seems to hang in the air at the end of the night. Yup, this question. The one that can take a perfectly good ending and turn it into a high-stakes pop quiz. And the answer, as you can probably guess, isn't a simple yes or no. So here's the only answer that really matters. It's not about a rule. It's about a feeling. The only things that should guide you are consent and mutual comfort. If the moment feels genuine, and if it feels truly shared, then trust it. Anything else is just forced. The best moments are never scheduled, and you can't assume they're going to happen. The ground rules for how to act are actually really simple, and they all just boil down to respect. Be there. Put your phone away, listen more than you talk, and show some genuine curiosity. And please avoid the classic mistakes. Complaining, talking endlessly about your exes, dominating the whole conversation. Remember, it's not a performance, it's a two-way street. And what happens if you need to set a boundary? Maybe they suggest a second drink and you're ready to go. It doesn't have to be a big, awkward thing. The trick is to do it with grace. You frame it in a positive way, you state what you'd prefer clearly, and then you suggest an alternative. Saying what you need isn't a vibe killer. It actually builds trust. So after all of this, after the fears and the philosophy and all the practical advice, what are we really left with? What's the secret to a date that you actually remember for the right reasons? We started this whole conversation with this one question. And after everything we've talked about, maybe the answer feels a little different now. If the point isn't to impress them, then what is the point? This right here is the whole game. The only real goal of a first date is to answer a single question. Can I be myself around this person? Can you actually relax? Can you breathe? Can you let your guard down even just a little? That's it. That is the only thing that actually matters. And I just want to leave you with this last thought. The perfect date isn't the one that costs the most or looks the best on Instagram. It's the one where the conversation just flows, where the laughter feels easy, where for a minute you completely forget that you're even on a first date. You're just two people connecting. If this shifted something for you today, maybe share it with someone you care about who needs to hear it. Hit subscribe for more conversations like this one, and if you have a second, leaving a review means the world. You've been listening to Stereo Butterflies.